The senses will never lead to long-term peace when we try to gratify them. The reason for that is in the spectrum of desireless to peaceful, peaceful to blissful, senses are destroying the first and the second stages of desireless and peaceful. The senses portray us as being incomplete, and as long as you are incomplete, you will not feel peaceful. Hence, the perpetual yearning or hankering for the objects of sensual gratification render the senses as incomplete. So instead of focusing on Atman as being incomplete when sequestered and taken away from the higher supreme authority called Paramatman, the senses misidentify and make you have an identity of an individual sense which is trying to find its object of sensual gratification, which can be eye for visions, ears for music, tongue for taste, skin for feel, and nose for the aromas. So by binding you to these objects and creating temporary surge, the reward of dopamine, which is the feel-good feeling surging through your body like an electricity, it creates a pathway of delusion which wants you to return back to this modality. Now notice that the union of the sense with the object of sensual gratification is temporary, transient, high dopamine releasing like a chemical reaction, and then dissociates immediately because prolonged perpetual contact is not the goal of the senses. So this misidentity that I am the body, I am the senses, and I have to search for the complementary object of sensual gratification creates a lifelong detour in which you are searching for something that is not going to bring you prolonged state of peace. And without peace, there cannot be liberation. Without peace, there cannot be bliss. So the killing of the doubts leads to the state agyascha shraddhanascha sanshayatma vinyashiti, agyas agyanas. So people who do not have any knowledge and people who are constantly doubting, those guys are always in sanshaya or confusion. And with confusion, neither in this loka nor in the next loka will you be happy. So my friends, senses are always going to mislead you. The only job that we should assign to our senses is the protection of the Panch Mahabhut Sharir or the five element body from calamities that can lead to dissociation of the prana with the Sharir. When there is no calamity, senses have no use and they start distracting you. Because they have nothing to serve and protect, they start to look for reasons to enjoy. And the enjoyment leads to the downfall of the Atman. And in that process, the person will get attached to this temporary surge of dopamine and thereby constantly yearning for further contacts in pursuit of happiness. By making you incomplete and not providing you a route for feeling complete permanently, the senses have trapped you in the model of attachment, in the model of craving, yearning, hankering to always feel incomplete and not have a solution by which you can overcome this problem. That is why whenever people are stressed, you will see they are yearning for these easy fixes of addictions. Give them a puff of smoke. Give them a uh, drink of alcohol, give them some quick fix in sex. But none of these things are going to solve their perpetual problem. In fact, they are going to aggravate the initial problem, which is search for peace. And by doing that, they're constantly bonding you to this worldly Maya Loka. So, my friends, in short, mind, ego, senses, none of them are your friends. Senses are definitely not your friends. Ego is definitely not your friend. Mind, when tamed, can become your friend. And buddhi, if it is not destroyed by the mind and the senses, can be your friend. So, senses, by attaching to the object of sensual gratification through the five modalities, is creating a temporary good feeling, sense of completion, which totally and quickly dissociates, and hence again, once again, you are rendered incomplete and left with the hankering and the reminiscence of the good feeling that you are imparted at the sensual level through dopamine. This neurotransmitter of Preya, dopamine, is thereby creating a memory reference in your mind, and you are constantly coming back to it to gain more enjoyment from it. When it's like scraping from the bottom of a barrel, there is nothing left, but you keep coming back and scratching, and the enjoyment goes down. Dopamine goes down, and that is the beautiful trap of Maya. Desensitization on repeated contacts without creating any further surge of dopamine. Hence, the pleasure is constantly diminishing on the repeated same contact of the sense with the object of sensual gratification. Hence, it leaves you perpetually incomplete and attached, addicted, and there is no way out. So instead of quenching the senses, we should use the path of yoga, Tri Yoga, and Panch Pratyahara austerities that I have talked about, which should be constantly used to diminish the hankering of the senses, which can render the mind as well as the intellect inefficient. And by doing the three yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, Nishkam Karm Yoga, especially Nishkam Karm Yoga, doing Yajna, sacrifice, Dan, philanthropy, and Tap, austerity, especially the austerities of the Panch Pratyahar, intermittent fasting, alkaline water consumption, doing Kumbhak Pranayama, doing some aerobic exercises, as well as the ether of Dhyana, you are going to negate the senses. Because the senses themselves are formed from the Mahabhuts. And by removing or cleansing the Mahabhut, you are controlling the senses, so they only serve and protect you, or not try to bring pleasure, which is this false trap of Maya, the misidentification of the ego, leaving you always feeling incomplete, hankering, craving, and thereby leading to further bondage and reincarnations. Jai Shri Ram.